Good evening and welcome. And I hope that all of you are able to join us for our Hispanic Heritage event. We are privileged to have one of our own at Indiana Wesleyan to give our talk in collaboration with a couple of his colleagues. And they'll be talking about barriers to entrepreneurship for women in Mexico. So bienvenidos y saludos a todos. We're going to start. I'm going to ask Catalina Foreman, who is who works in our Office of Global Intercultural and Global Outreach here at Indiana Wesleyan, to say a prayer for us to get us started. Catalina, please.
Yeah, thank you. So those of you that are joining at home, I'd love it if you just pray with me. Dios, gracias porque nos has traído aquí hoy para escuchar a nuestros hermanos y hermanas. Thank you, God, so much that you've brought us here today to listen and learn from our brothers and sisters. I pray that you be present in our spaces, the spaces that we are joining remotely and joining across distance, and that you give us ears to hear and to listen and to learn more about you, your love, your what it means to be your body, the body of Christ, from listening and hearing some of the stories that the folks who are joining us today have prepared to share. Thank you so much for this time and for this opportunity to gather together with one another. And I pray, amen.
Amen, thank you. So I am my name is Ruben Rubio, and I am the interim vice president for diversity, equity, and inclusion here at Indiana Wesleyan. And I was wondering if what I would like to do is introduce our guests. And I'm going to give them a second. One of our guests is having a little bit of trouble getting in. So I'm going to introduce the others. I'll introduce all three of them. But John may talk first before we hear from Pablo. So we'll start with John Johnson. And Dr. John Johnson has been the coordinator of faculty recruiting at Indiana Wesleyan University since 1999. And he's helped to increase the diversity of IWU faculty through his hiring practices. He speaks Spanish and Russian and uses both languages to conduct research. He's been to 45 countries and conducted research in person in Guatemala, Mexico, Ukraine, Poland, Japan, the Philippines, and Nigeria. His published work includes 8 books and numerous journal articles. Joining us soon will be Pablo Quiroz Zepeda. And Pablo is an International Affairs Office representative at Marist Universidad in Guadalajara, Mexico. He's a professor of the International Purchases and Sales Workshop at that same institution. And he's an analyst and journalist of the Mexican Jewish journal Diario Judeo. And then finally, we have Itzel Castellanos. And Itzel is also a graduate of Marist Universidad in Guadalajara. She's an architect, and she helped quite a bit with the data collection for this research project. And she is also a former tapatía, a former dancer doing both folklorico and flamenco. So that is our group. And Dr. Johnson, I'm going to throw it over to you to get us started.
Thank you, Dr. Rubio. It's a real pleasure to speak with everyone today. Thank you, Ruben, for the invitation and for the opportunity. And the story of how this research project came about it's in itself, it's interesting. I first started doing research in Mexico in 1992. I learned to speak Spanish in 1986. And then in 1992, I collected some data in Ensenada, Mexico, which is in Baja California on the West Coast. But that was part of my doctorate program, but I went on to write my doctoral dissertation on Ukraine. And I moved to the Ukraine and I lived there for 5 years. During the first 18 months, I collected data for my doctoral dissertation I was the first American to write about leadership in Ukraine after perestroika. And one of the organizations that I studied was a business that was started by a very, very competent female entrepreneur. And I had the opportunity to interview her and her colleagues, and then to try to understand more about leadership through that, and then through some other organizations. I moved back to the United States. I went back to the idea of barriers to entrepreneurship for women in Ukraine about 5 years ago, designed a study that would first of all interview women in almost all of the states of Ukraine. It was for you research buffs that want to know the methodology. It was a phenomenological study that focused on the lived experience of entrepreneurs. And I didn't do it alone. I had a great team that traveled and interviewed. They traveled all over Ukraine and they interviewed women to find out what the barriers were. Out of that, we developed a quantitative questionnaire that was published in Ukraine. I was on television there a few times talking about it. But I realized about 3 or 4 years ago, I realized that methodology could be used in another country. And I didn't want to do it in the United States because we have lots and lots of entrepreneurship studies here. I thought how interesting it would be to compare this, to do a comparative study with another country which has some similar dynamics, but that's different. So I was able to connect with Pablo Zabeda and Itzel Castellano. I went to Guadalajara. We set up this project, and as we did set up the project, we began to focus on what the barriers to entrepreneurship for women were in Mexico. And in doing this, there were two different phases to the project. First of all, there was a national study, and in the national study, we surveyed 601 women, and Itzel and Pablo helped with this. Itzel conducted a lot of the interviews. Pablo conducted some interviews. I flew down and conducted some interviews several times and helped as well. But we began to see this as a mechanism for Mexican-American dialogue. And I think we all know right now that we need more dialogue between Mexico and the United States. It's too easy in the United States for Americans, in my opinion, not to understand Mexico. And I got an insight into this. I was presenting 3 years ago, I was presenting in Russian in Ukraine at a university there. And I had started the Mexico study and I gave some preliminary results, and the room just erupted in interest, and everyone said, wow, what a fascinating country Mexico is. How diverse, and one of the largest countries in the world. And I thought to myself, boy, I wish more Americans knew that. I wish they would tune in to that and to what an amazing country this is, and a country that's prosperous in many ways. It is a country that many people in Latin America want to live in. So we did this study, and we discovered a number of the barriers which I think were interesting. 19% reported lack of independent support, 18% lack of government support, 16% reported lack of qualified staff, and then 14.1% professed to have lack of self-confidence. Which was really fascinating. Itzel, could you make some comments on the data collection?
Of course. Well, hello everyone. It was really interesting to get to know the different data around this study, because Mexico, it's such a diverse ecosystem related to in business. Like, so we got to know different types of businesses here in Guadalajara, for example, where we conducted the research on site, and we got to know new businesses held by women of different ages and also of different social status. which gave us a lot of insights in here.
Great, thank you so much. Pablo, are you where you can turn your video on?
Oh, no, can you, well, I have a
Yeah, we can
camera.
hear
I
you.
don't
That's
know if-
okay. Yeah.
No, it's okay if you allow me to start my video, well, my camera on.
Oh, would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Right, I'm trying.
Oh, I see. You're trying, but it's not allowing you to.
No.
Doug,
Anyway,
is there a technical limitation on the video for our
I
colleagues?
think so, but I truly appreciate this space, this platform to connect with Mexican American affairs, because it is not just because of the new NAFTA agreement. It is because we share a common border, and it is one of the longest borders in the world, which it is not just including migration, it is also including economical and cultural affairs, which are really important for each sides of the border. Now, one thing that I can tell you about this study, about this research and the data collecting, sorry, is that even when we were working so hard in Guadalajara metropolitan area, we wanted to go also to summits of entrepreneurials, which gave us the time to connect with people from other states in Mexico. And we did, and we achieved that. And it was something that we learned from women entrepreneurials from states such as Oaxaca, Puebla, Michoacán, Nayarit, Sinaloa, Yucatan, some states that are also exporting their products to the United States. I was telling to Dr. John Johnson that 2 weeks ago, I was in your country in a different state. And after 12 years, I am surprised. I'm really surprised in a positive way that Mexican products and Mexican life in the Mexican American life is blooming, but blooming, integrating also other ethnicities from the United States. But the only thing that we need to observe a little bit more is how women entrepreneurials can even impose harder their products in the American market. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Pablo. And you both have such great insights into this. But and for those of you that don't understand, Guadalajara is the second largest city in Mexico. It is, correct my geography, Pablo, and it's about 700 or 800 miles south of the border. Is that about right?
Well, it's a little bit longer, but we
Okay.
are really close by airplane. Yeah.
You're very kind. You're very kind.
You fly down here.
The geography
It's
lessons
okay.
that I skipped. And that is, so we did a national study, but we also did a Guadalajara study. But in the national study, we interviewed people, surveyed people from most states of Mexico. And the main barriers were 43% perceived that government bureaucracy is a barrier, 33% perceived that the lack of business financing is a barrier, 31% perceive the lack of government support as a barrier to their work. However, an interesting insight here is, as compared to the Ukrainian study, Mexican women had more government support and more financial support and more availability of capital. And I think that's true. There actually have been programs, Mexican programs, that have sponsored and encouraged entrepreneurship. And we surveyed people from 26 states. The average age of participants was 34. And this was in the national study. So we have two different parts. And then going back to the Guadalajara study, we actually served
Yeah,
We lost you there for a
he's
second,
back.
John.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Not sure what happened. We'll get back up again. Itzel, are you there? Could you share about the experience of data collection and what we
Of
learned from
course.
it? Yeah.
Of course. Well, as John said, we collected different data. First of all, in the national aspects, which we mostly did in social media. This was through different Facebook groups of mujeres emprendedoras or mujeres selling different kinds of products, promoting their products. And there we discovered something really interesting, which is that there is a strong community of women supporting each other in these ecosystems. For example, there are several groups here in Guadalajara that encourage women and support them to start their new business. This can be either in technology or in any other industry, which was really interesting to know. And the second part, we also collected data from one-to-one. We made a small database of different businesses that are located here in Guadalajara and also in different cities of the country. And we classified them a little into what kind of industry were they, and we sent them personally the link to complete the survey. Fortunately, most of them got to answer our survey, and we got to talk even a little via message with them, and we got to know also their businesses, to know their community and how they do these sales day to day and how they promote their business too. The second part that we did was in Guadalajara, and we went out and collect data, asking all the questions of the survey face to face in different bazares. Bazares are like small markets that are held in different parts of the city, where different types of business came together and sell their products. This can be their food or any kind of product that they sell. And you get to know all the diversity that you can see of business in here. We also collected data in markets. What is the difference between a bazaar and a market? Okay, as I said before, we discovered that entrepreneurship, especially in Guadalajara, has different types of social status. So in markets, you can find a different type of business, different than in bazaars. For example, in markets, you can find mostly business related with food, with sales of clothes or any other product. And you can find differences between the hours that they work for their business. We also discover that for most of the cases in an early beginning of a business, this can be a side job of women. So most of them work around 9 hours or even more. John has a related experience with that. John, do you remember the time?
Yes, I do remember. Thank you, Etzel, for reminding me that. So I interviewed an entrepreneur in one of the markets who had started her own restaurant business that was based in the market. And she talked about being there 12 hours a day, getting there early in the morning, and having her family help, and then going home late at night. The only day she took off was Sunday. But very happy to be able to support herself and her family through that business. But what's interesting is there were great contrasts to that as well. We also talked with a lady who owned a vintage clothing shop. It's something like I've never seen in the United States, where you know how clothing of certain era becomes cool. And this was a beautiful shop in a wealthy part of Guadalajara, which, by the way, there's a lot of money in Guadalajara. They put our Indianapolis millionaires to shame. You can go, there are streets in Guadalajara where there are BMWs and Mercedes parked everywhere. And this was a section like that, a beautiful shop. The lady obviously catered to very wealthy clientele who had money to come in and buy her well-priced products. So this is something to keep in mind, is entrepreneurship for women. In Mexico, it really does span the spectrum. And this is one of the things that makes Mexico such an interesting country. There are really interesting contrasts there. but we don't want to forget to talk about how we have used this for Mexican-American dialogue. And Pablo is a well-known journalist in Mexico. Pablo, can you talk about some of the places that we've been able to present this?
Yes, sure, John, and dear public from Indiana Wesleyan. We didn't want just to show the results and experience with media and organizations in the south of the border. We wanted to share this information, this important information, for audience in the United States as well in Mexico. But the very first step that we made was to go with TV channels and radio stations in Mexico. And we had this amazing opportunity to be on Canal 44, which is also broadcasting not just in Guadalajara. They broadcast also in the entire country, and even in LA. They have a channel on the private television there, and it's part of the Universidad de Guadalajara. And we were interviewed also by 91.5 Zona 3 Noticias, also in Guadalajara, Mexico. And after that, we decided also to connect with the media in the United States. We had twice, we had 2 times an invitation to be on live in Chicago area with an important Hispanic radio station there, and also with once with a radio station in Indiana, and another time in the state of Michigan. So, but it is not going to stop there. We think that it is important to keep sharing what is the former research and what we are looking towards to do with the new perspectives after COVID-19 and the impacting insights that we might find in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Pablo. And what I remember, and Pablo and I have done the interviews together. He is, by the way, he is excellent on television. Pablo, you are a very effective journalist.
Thank you very much, John.
Yes, and we've done the interviews together on television, and as he mentioned, in Chicago, and then also in Northern Indiana on a prominent Hispanic station, Spanish-speaking station there. What we've emphasized every time is that in the United States, we care about what's going on in Mexico. We're not here. We're not connected just to take. We want to give back. We want to help do studies. And with Indiana Wesleyan, under the Indiana Wesleyan brand, we want to help do studies that strengthen families. Because Pablo and Itzel know this is the real crux of it for me, is that when women can start businesses, and when women can start businesses, they can support their families, and it empowers them. I remember my wife, as some of you know, is Hannah Senko, is from the Ukraine originally. And I remember when she was in business there in the Ukraine, and the struggle to have the empowerment that was needed. So this is a study that really helps to empower women. And every media appearance we've made, we've emphasized this, that yeah, there are a lot of Americans that maybe don't understand what's going on in Mexico, and a lot of Americans, all they know about is the wall or the frontier, the border. But this is a vibrant country, and there is much to be had through dialogue. And I have learned personally so much from the dialogue of this study with Pablo and Itzel and the colleagues that they've introduced me to. And I'm so grateful for that. Okay, so the next steps, what we would like to do next, we are open to being interviewed on major US television stations, Telemundo and different ones. And we may be able to use our network. By the way, all the media contacts in the United States so far have been from Pablo. Thank you, Pablo. We appreciate that. We plan to publish these studies in Spanish and English academic journals. We've been delayed a little bit because of COVID, in terms of the academic side. And then also, we want to do a post-COVID data collection because we know things have changed for many entrepreneurs because of COVID. So we would like to do post-COVID data collection and just to try to see what's changed and what hasn't. We would love to organize and conduct focus groups in different regions of Mexico in order to understand barriers. And then, yes,
sorry.
Pablo, please.
Yeah,
yes.
if I may, I forgot to tell everyone that we were also really glad to have an open platform from the authorities of the U.S. General Consulate in Guadalajara, as we had the opportunity to present also this amazing work and data insights for Esquina Franklin, which is part of the Department of State. It's an amazing project that is located here in Guadalajara, but also it was supported by the U.S. General Consulate in town and Education USA. This door is already open, and John is sharing to us the next steps, which of course we'll use, of course, with this kind invitation from the American authorities in Mexico, once again to be guest and present this amazing work.
Pablo, thank you for mentioning that. And that is a really important point. For those of you who have not lived outside of the United States, almost every American embassy has a cultural organization that's connected with it. I remember when I lived in Ukraine, it was called Ukraine House, and it was like another part of the embassy, but it was the part that dialogued with culture, and they used to have a library. And Esquina Franklin in Guadalajara is that way. And it means, in English, it means Franklin Corner, after Benjamin Franklin. So in other words, a place for cultural dialogue. And Pablo, through his connections, had us present there. We presented on Zoom for the cultural arm of the U.S. Embassy in Guadalajara. And they are open, and in Mexico has a organization like this in different states, and the other organizations like this throughout the country that are connected with the U.S. Embassy are interested in having us present there as well. So we look forward to this, and in terms of how you all can help us to promote our project. This project has always been underfunded. We did have initially, we had a very small grant, I think of about $1,200, and the Indiana Wesleyan has helped by flying me to Guadalajara a couple of times to do Spanish refresher, which has been great. I do Spanish refresher every year or two, and so we appreciate all the support that's done, but we do need more funding to move it forward. But we'll stop there for right now, because I know that our audience probably has some questions, and I think particularly Pablo and Itzel, being the resourceful people that they are, both very excellent professionals, and Itzel has excellent social media skills, and without her, we would not have gotten the data collection done.
So I was going to ask if I could ask a couple of questions. Itzel, I'll start with you, if that's okay. So in collecting data, I noticed you had a really good response rate. I felt like, in doing survey work, I think your response rate was pretty enviable. How did you get such a good response rate from these women? Was there something you did, or was it just willingness on their part?
I think it was both, mostly willingness on their part. As I told you before, there is a strong support between women in here, and in different groups of entrepreneurs. You can see a strong support, and even they shared sometimes with their friends that were also business owners. And also the approach that we had I think the survey was as brief as necessary to get the exact information that we wanted to gather. And the way that we approached to each woman was really kind also. Either it was by message or face-to-face. We're always patient, always comprehensive. When they didn't have the time to answer it in that moment, we might send them to them via email or social media either, or waiting there. And it also happened in social media.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Yeah. Like I said, that's an enviable response rate. Pablo, I was wondering if I could ask you something now.
Yes, sure.
Okay, so the question I have for you is, did you find what you were expecting to find? I mean, you know, usually we go into something with a hypothesis. You know, I think this is what I'm going to find. Do you feel like you found what you were expecting, or did you find something different than what you were expecting?
I think it was half and half. I need to be honest. Of course, we live here. We live in Guadalajara, and we notice, in particular, Itzel and myself, many issues and many necessities for entrepreneurials, and not just women, people in general, which would like to improve their economical and social reality. Nevertheless, when you go inside of this motivation, inside of this, how can I say it? It's like a kind of survival lifestyle, and I'm not minimizing. Instead, I'm maximizing the efforts of the entrepreneurs, the women that we interviewed. Then you notice that there is more individually and collectively to get well, to understand and to make empathy. It was kind of common that we approached to the people. We had this approach to the women, to these entrepreneurs, and they wanted to share you more information. But of course, our research, and we need to respect this academic format, was more related to the counting part, the quantitative format. Even though we wanted to share also in this inside within the conclusions that we faced more comments related to the perspective of the women who we interviewed. And it is not that you just share the survey and then you go. The people wanted to share more related to the data that they were expressing to us, and it was really important.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to ask two more questions. This one I'm going to throw open to all three of you, and then I'll close with one for John. So this one, like I said, I'd be interested in what any of you have to say about this. But the survey looked to me like you could almost separate into two categories. One is the government can do more things, and the other is I need help. I need confidence. I need understanding. I need direction. You know, maybe training. It seemed like most of them, when they were looking for what could help them, it could feel like it could go into those two categories. Is there what one thing could the government do that would have the most impact, or what training or what additional bit of confidence or whatever it is that would help them to feel like they could do this? Do you think would help many of these women?
Well, if you allow me to
Yes,
answer.
please, Etzel. Please, Etzel.
Okay, I think there are many things that the government can do. Of course, I'm not a female entrepreneur. I'm answering this since the experience we gained from this research and from other experience I've heard from different women. They can do, for example, financing more businesses for this, opening more spaces. During the former studies of every student have these opportunities to know how to hold a business, or even to have more opportunities for them to start their career in other industries. It's interesting to know that mostly women are related to care industries or any other businesses that are related to, for example, beauty, food. But in Guadalajara, we find different expressions of businesses. Like, for example, I think the most were related to arts and media. And it's interesting to know that women are going through other industries and not only staying in the care industries. So maybe giving more support to them. Actually, there are many programs in Guadalajara that promote the formation for women in technology, and I think that could help a lot also. For example, if you allow me to comment something additional that I remember.
Please.
A couple of days ago, I read in the newspaper that said that, like a breaking news, that Mexicans were found to have different vices during the pandemic. You know what these vices were? Mexican having 5 jobs at the same time. And these were calling vices. I don't think that's a vice. People get to have more than one job because the economic aspects are not enough, are being so big and so challenging that they need to have more than one job to cover their economic needs. I think government can help also in maybe kind of regulating the salaries between different industries and not paying so little or so much to different professionals. And that's all for my part. I don't know if Pablo, you want to compliment?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am experiencing this situation at my home, mi casa, su casa. My wife is entrepreneurial. She studied interior design. She has a master degree it's a master degree in fashion design and sustainable industry. And she would like to improve her entrepreneurship. But what is going on? Of course, she was accepted by these kind of programs that itself is mentioning, such as Reto Zapopan, Zapopan Challenge, which is a municipal program. Nevertheless, what is the main problem? Of course, you could be a woman who would like to be an entrepreneur, but then you face that you need to have a previous income or to ask for any financial support from your family members, from a financial entity, or from the same government, and then you don't know if you will have the grant to pay it back. And that's a risk that normally women are facing before they go, they enter to these applications of programs. And I do agree also with itself view with that the government needs to classify the groups of entrepreneurs, not just saying that every entrepreneurs can be included in one application or another. It is really important to focus on each industry and to get what are the necessities or the benefits or the lacks of financial knowledge and financial support to each of them. But yeah, I think that is my perspective in this particular point.
Ruben, is there time for me to ask Pablo and Itzel a question?
Yes, by all means.
So Pablo and Itzel, both of you are Mexicans you're very aware internationally. And I know, Pablo, you've been to Europe and worked there, and Itzel, you keep up with international affairs. And you know that through this project, we have tried to create Mexican-American dialogue and do things to improve the image of the United States there. What else could be done first of all, how do Mexicans feel, Mexicans like yourselves who are aware of international issues? How do Mexicans like yourselves feel about the United States right now? And what more could we do to improve Mexican-American dialogue and cooperation? Pablo, if you want to start and then Itzel follow.
Okay, ladies first or not, Itzel?
Be my guest, please.
Okay. Thank you, Itzel. Well, Mexico is culturally big as the United States, and I need to be honest, there is ignorance in both sides of the border, not just to feel guilty as Americans to say we don't understand Mexican cultural, Mexican reality. And the same happens here. But I truly believe that since the new federal government in the United States with Biden administration, even though there are some misunderstanding and misconceptions between the governments, there is optimism, but I wouldn't like to say which part is the best for Mexican-American relations. I would like better to say that Mexican and American societies are highly dependent, and that is not bad. Actually, it's really good. We share families, we share economies, but now we need to focus on the particularities of each society and the particularities that are in between us. As I mentioned, for me, it's a pride that American people from all ethnicities are being the customers of Mexican or Latino supermarkets. When I lived in your country 10 years ago, that didn't happen. It was a Mexican or Hispanic store for Mexicans or Guatemalans or Salvador. And it is not happening right now. Now they are part of the society. Now we have dreamers. Now we have Mexican families who have more than 4 generations in states such as Indiana, such as Ohio, states that normally happen to be the states where normally the U.S. Soccer team played versus Mexico because they were not enough Mexicans to watch the game. But this is completely different. And now we are part of your society. But I am still thinking that we are committed to learn from each of us every day and to share with you more and more opportunities. And also, one important thing is to recognize the new agreement between Canada, the States, and us for the different lines that we can open with a new vision in terms of e-commerce, digital market, better union procedures from the 3 parties, and definitely we are going to build a better North American society.
Thank you, Pablo. Fascinating. Itzel, I know that you read widely and you're involved in intellectual and cultural things. What is your perspective on this?
I think we can do a lot of things. First of all, one of the things that we're doing right now is having this dialogue. It's really important to have this dialogue that is from both sides, from United States and from Mexico. It's time to do research that it comes from both sides, from Mexico to the United States and United States to Mexico. It would be also really interesting to analyze the relation that female entrepreneurs have with United States. For example, I can tell you that many of the entrepreneurs in here sell clothes. You know where those clothes come from? From the United States. They go and buy clothes in there, which are the cheapest from there, and sell them in here. How is that affecting businesses? How are they holding their e-commerce? For example, many of the small businesses that began in Mexico, now they have international shipping. How can the government have more facilities for them to send more things? And as I told you, maybe conduct cross-sectional dialogues and research between the 2 parts, have to get to know, I think we mentioned it in the presentation, maybe do some focus groups to know what are the specific and qualitative aspects that are facing the women as entrepreneurs. What is going on with Mexican entrepreneurs in the United States? What are the different parts or businesses that they are focusing in? Which are their clients? What do they sell? what do people right now want from this multicultural exchange? I think that would be really interesting for every one of us to start asking.
I think that's a fascinating comment. And I'm thinking about the great intellectual gifts that Mexico has given the United States, some of the great film directors that we have, some of the great academics that we have. Going back, we have a lot to benefit here, and yeah, we have a lot to benefit, and there's a lot for us to learn and gain. And I think that particularly in the West, I think particularly in California, Arizona, New Mexico, the societies are more integrated in many ways. In some parts of Texas, but it's harder for us here in the upper Midwest, I think, to realize that Mexican society is really a part of American society in so many ways. Back to you, Ruben.
Okay, actually, I'm going to throw it over to Catalina.
So you both, you've actually all alluded a little bit to some of the ways that the pandemic has shaped some of the things you've observed, just the opportunities that exist, but also just the context in which they exist. And I think you mentioned that you're looking at doing a follow-up study that's related to how the pandemic has shaped entrepreneurship options for women. And I'm curious just about if you have, while this isn't, the hunches you have before research are not the same as data. I'm curious maybe about what it is that what you're seeing now a little bit more, and if you could talk about that.
Itzel and Pablo live in Mexico. Please take it away.
Well, we're really curious about doing this follow-up study because, as Pablo mentioned before, what happens when women are starting a new business, normally they have another job, a full-time job. So when we got to be back at home, many of the women that already had a small business going on had to go back at home and maybe take care of their kids. You don't know, and we don't know if the carrying things at home were divided between the couple or not. What happened with those business? Were they lost? Are they going to go back? What happened with those women that already had been empowered by their own business and salary, going back home? There are no, for many women, it's a reality that they can go back to work because I don't remember the name, because guarderías, the place where they take care of kids, if I don't remember the name, I'm sorry.
Daycares?
Excuse me?
Daycares?
Oh, yeah, daycares were not open. Kindergartens were not open. Women had to divide themselves between home, between taking care of the children, taking care of their job. Well, many of them got to lose something. What happens with them? Also, what is going on with e-commerce? If they increase their sales or they decreased, there is more competence between different businesses. There are many questions that we are really curious to ask. Also, what happens with the informal economy sector? Because most of them were held in markets and markets were closed. Their biggest source of sales was closed. So there are many questions that have been changing here in Mexico.
Yes, I do agree also with Itzel perspective in this situation, in this circumstance. First of all, e-commerce increased so much as you had also the same statistics in the United States. But our main problem was the inside of the house's affairs. Of course, we need to be clear that 2020 wasn't the best number of COVID cases. It was the worst number of violence against women in Mexico also. So we are facing also this particular social problem, and it's something that is also an obstacle for women entrepreneurs to develop themselves and also to take care about their families. Another important thing that Itzel mentioned was the lack um, of support or social help from the public or private institutions, being well, women entrepreneurs, of course, expressed after the days of the research during COVID-19 times that they couldn't have enough time, but they were doing their best to take care about their families, their children, married or not married. They were doing an amazing effort, but it's not going to, it is not that we have to congratulate ourselves for that. It is more to seek for a better environment for this part of the society. Even we are going to face a complicated time for education, because not everyone keep studying in Mexico. We had a complicated virtual, how can I say, virtual context in Mexico. Not everyone had a device and an electronic device to be connected with their professors and to increase their knowledge about being entrepreneurials, marketing studies, communication skills, and so on. Yes, I think government and society, we need to take care about these important issues and to don't let them get worse that the panorama is showing right now in 2021.
Thank you very much. Wow, that's awesome. Thanks, muchas gracias. I've got one more question for John before we close it up. So, John, it's basically, I want to ask what a nice guy like you is doing in Guadalajara, Mexico. It's a long way for you, and this is clearly a labor of love that God put in your heart. Why do you do this?
Well, I've been interested in supporting families for a long time. And I think it's to help empower women, but it also keeps me in touch with reality. I mean, I live in a suburb here in the United States, and one thing I've noticed, I need to get out. I need to get to Guadalajara. I need to get to Ukraine to keep in touch with reality, because what we live through here is not reality as far as the world is concerned. And I need my own values to be challenged and my own perspectives to be challenged. And I have learned so much from Pablo and Itzel and from this project. But I think also I do feel that it's extremely important for someone like myself who can speak Spanish, but I did learn it as an adult. So cuando yo hablo español, la gente sabe que yo estoy gringo. And so when I speak Spanish, people know that I learned it they know I have an American accent. And I think it's really important for Mexicans to hear that and to know that, yeah, we over here, we are reaching out too. We are reaching out. Or when I get on Spanish speaking radio stations, that people from here, we care and we want to support. And I want to promote. The other thing I would mention, Ruben, is I'm also a peer reviewer with the Higher Learning Commission, and I've been on the committee to help increase diversity at Indiana Wesleyan over the last 10 years. We have made tremendous strides forward. And I would like to help continue to support that with things like this.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to just give tenemos gratitud por el apoyo de la tecnología. Thanks for the technological support of Doug and Rachel. Thank you very much. We couldn't have done this without you. Y tenemos agradecida por la trabaja de John y Pablo y Itzel. We're very grateful for the work of John and Pablo and Itzel, and we hope that you continue to do this and you have some really good stuff going on. So muchas gracias a Carolina también for being a support. And to all of you out there, whether you're with us live or you join in later, thank you very much for being with us, and I hope you learned something really cool today. So, hace bien noche. Have a good evening. We'll see you later.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches. Gracias a todos.
Hasta luego, muchas gracias.
Adiós.
Feliz mes de la hispanidad.
Y gracias, Rubén, para la oportunidad.
De nada. Gloria a Dios.